All right, so today we are talking about 10 ways that DRaaS can save your bacon. We know that disasters can't always be avoided, but disaster recovery as a service, or DRaaS, can save your data and systems from that resulting downtime due to outages. So that's what we're going to focus on today, and I have just a couple of really quick housekeeping announcements. First is just that if you would like a copy of this presentation, you will be able to grab a copy of the slides in the handouts in just a moment here. And so you'll see that within the software. Also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can use the questions tool in GoToWebinar in order to get those in. Any questions or comments that you have can go right in there. I'll be able to see them real time as you put them in. And then also, if you'd like a replay of this recording, we are recording this today, you'll be able to access that at infrascale.com/webinars within about 24 hours. So those are all the housekeeping announcements I have for you. We're going to take a look at the agenda next. Here's my contact info. My name's Carla Federigo. I'm the Director of Marketing at Infrascale. I would love to hear from you. If any other questions come up after the presentation and you'd like to get in touch, please do. And then here's the agenda for today. So we are going to look at data loss and DRaaS. We want to have a really clear understanding of what is DRaaS, how does it work, what are the different types of data loss that DRaaS can address, and then once we're all, sort of a level set, once we all get on the same page with that, the 10 ways that DRaaS can save your bacon. We'll focus on that subject matter for today. And then I will tell you a little bit about the Infrascale DRaaS solution. We do know that not all DRaaS solutions are created equal. So I'll give you a little bit of insight into how Infrascale DRaaS works, and then we'll have a Q&A. All right, so with that, we do want to go ahead and get started. Now, I'd like to actually start with a quick poll. You're going to hear quite a bit from me today for this presentation. We have about 45-minute presentation, and then we can do 15 minutes of Q&A. And I'd like to hear from you to start off. So let me get that poll launched here. There we go. So which single data protection challenge are you facing most? Is it A, maybe it's meeting RTO or RPO? B, data sprawl, ensuring that everything is protected? C, proper disaster recovery planning? Or D, ransomware mitigation? So I'll give everyone a moment to answer here. So far, we have about 40% of you have voted. Right now, we're looking at B and C have a pretty even split. I'll give everyone just another few moments to participate. If you'd like to, go ahead and reach forward, vote on one of these options here. And we have the majority of you have voted so far, and it looks like we are relatively split between B and C. So we'll make sure to address that today. We had, for those of you who did respond, we had about 50% responding data sprawl, ensuring that everything's protected, another 50% answering proper disaster recovery planning. And really that's exactly where DRaaS comes into play. And so we will make sure to address both of these issues, as well as touch on the other two issues as well, meeting RTO and RPO and ransomware mitigation. So awesome. Let me close this poll down. Thank you so much for your participation in that. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's start here by looking at some of the threats to business continuity that we're going to talk about today and that DRaaS addresses. So we're going to talk about the loss of data like files and folders. So that file and folder data loss that can happen on a very regular basis. We're going to talk about data hijacking, like comes into play with ransomware. And we have all seen these headlines more and more recently. This is coming into play. And then we're going to talk about business downtime by having systems and servers go down. So system downtime that comes into play as a threat to business continuity in those hurricanes and natural disasters that we're seeing more and more. So these are the overall threats to business continuity that we're going to talk about today and that DRaaS addresses. Now, if we take a look at data loss by some of the numbers, we see that, it could be anything from leaving a phone in a taxi, leaving a laptop on a plane, or those cases of hardware failure, human error, natural disasters. But regardless of the cause, the problem of data loss still continues today. And it really is as old as computers, as long as we've had these machines. So if we look at some of these numbers, 75% of companies surveyed lost software applications, virtual machines, or critical files. And this was in a 1-year period. 25% of PC users lose data every single year as well. And 15% of all laptops are stolen or suffer hard drive failures. So when we look at these stats, we realize it's really not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when, right? And so you want to be prepared in the event that any of these disasters happen. Because it's really the downtime that's so crippling to business, not in general the data loss itself. And that cost can be extremely significant, really scaling in terms of the size of the business. So for a smaller business, the cost per hour of downtime we have seen to be from anywhere from $8,000 up to $200,000 for a medium-sized business, or $600,000 for a larger enterprise. And so this is calculated cost per hour of downtime. If you're interested in the report where these stats came from, I'm happy to share that with you. And these figures have increased. So these are stats from last year's report. We don't yet have this year's report, but these stats are always increasing as well as we have more and more critical data, and also more the ability to get more work done in a quicker and more efficient manner. So that hour of downtime results in not only the lost data, but the lost work done by those employees. And then you have other resources involved when it comes to restoring to production hardware. We'll talk about all of that in just a few minutes here. We'll get to all of that. But let's be sure we're on the same page here. We're talking about DRaaS, so Disaster Recovery as a Service, which is very different than backup. And let's look at backup versus DRaaS side by side. And this, of course, is extremely important when we're talking about any type of outage. It could be a ransomware attack, it could be a hurricane, it could be human error. So accidental deletion of files. But at any point in time when there's an outage, we know that time is your worst enemy. So the faster that you can be back up and running, the less data loss you have, and when it comes to something like ransomware, avoid paying those high ransoms as well. So simple backup procedures take significantly longer than a modern DRaaS solution. With cloud backup, we're looking at the top of the screen here, 4 to 5 hours is the best case scenario. And part of that reason is, let's take a look at all these steps involved. And cloud backup, it requires lots of planning and coordination. If you have a backup system in place, you need to find a clean point from which to restore. You need to then get the hardware to recover. You need to set up the machine, reconfigure those services, and then test it for viability before you can restore that clean environment from a backup. And then if it's not viable, you need to start over again before you restore to production, right? So if you have a DRaaS solution in place, taking a look at the bottom half of the screen, then you can simultaneously cloud boot multiple versions of the same machine and determine the safe version to recover. And then you simply boot either to the cloud, a virtual environment, or recover to production hardware. So the total downtime is about 1 to 2 minutes, saving a ton of time and money. You can just see how much simpler these steps are. And I'll show you guys in just a moment here in another few slides, but the Infrascale DRaaS solution includes built-in failover orchestration, and that lets you create these predetermined failover plans. So that makes it that much easier and quicker to recover. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But rather than just talk through it, I do want to give a specific example. So this is how it works when it comes to on-demand failover. And DRaaS supports DR to be on demand with push-button failover. And here's a scenario where, in this situation, here are some end users working on their production systems. And we're going to install the Infrascale Disaster Recovery solution, which is a hybrid cloud solution. So there's the on-prem failover appliance installed locally. And this might be a virtual or physical appliance. And then a cloud-based service like would run on any public or private cloud. So we are going to capture the systems to the appliance, dedupe them to compress the amount of data that's stored, and then we're going to replicate those systems up to the cloud. So we now have 2 copies of those systems. We have one located on the appliance, and we have one centrally located on the cloud. So if one system were to go down, any admin could fail over to the local appliance and bring back the most recent point or replica of that individual system. That way, the users can continue working with that application or that server. So that's one scenario, but let's assume that there is a site-wide disaster. So the local appliance is no longer going to be available, and that's okay. We're still going to use those same steps and just a few clicks in order to bring up a full virtual environment that replicates exactly what was on premise, and now those users continue working by interacting with the cloud-based systems. So Infrascale offers a cloud DRaaS solution where all backups are replicated off-site to allow for a much faster recovery, cloud-based recovery, of entire machines so that your users can continue to work while the production environment's repaired. And that's how that on-demand failover works. Now, especially when ransomware comes into play, anomaly detection technology is going to be a very critical piece of technology as well. And this is simply built in. So we're monitoring the backup activity and looking at the patterns of data change. So we're taking a look at how frequently the data is changing. And when ransomware goes through your system, it will modify the files that it touches. So that way, if it's a file that you're backing up, it's recognized as a changed file. And in this analysis, we are monitoring the normal number of changed files per day. So if suddenly you see a spike, like on the right-hand side of your screen here, where that threshold of normal numbers are exceeded, then an alert is released to the administrator. And this is a really, really important piece of technology because most DRaaS solutions out there today don't have a proactive warning system in place. So when it does come to ransomware, most will say it can't be detected, it can only be remediated, but we're able to do both. And so I wanted to bring up that technology before we start looking at some of the other pieces and some of the other components to take into consideration when you're looking at a solution, so that we're all clear on how it works and where it comes in use. But let's get into the DRaaS details, right? Because that's what we're here for today. And at a high level, here's the process where we're seeing from the bottom up Infrascale Cloud Backup and Infrascale Disaster Recovery, first and foremost. And then the next layer up, we're seeing the source system that we're trying to protect, whether Windows or Linux or Unix systems, VMware or Hyper-V. And then there's going to be an agent installed, maybe a software agent on the machine, or in the case of virtual environments, with VMware, it'd be a direct connection to their API. And in the case of Hyper-V, it would be a host level or hypervisor level agent. And then we're going to capture those systems. In the case of cloud backup, we'll dedupe the data. We directly send it to the cloud of your choosing. In the case of DR, we capture the systems to an on-prem appliance. We dedupe it there, and then we replicate that data to the cloud. So you have 2 copies of that data. And then everything is administered through our central web-based dashboard. So you can log in from any browser, even a tablet or smartphone. And you can also access those orchestration policies that I mentioned earlier. And I said we were going to come back to that. So let's take a quick look at orchestration, because this is one of the key differentiators in any DR solution that you have. So with orchestration, you want the orderly recovery of a server environment. And orchestration is going to ensure that those critical servers, applications, and devices all come online in the proper sequence based on dependencies. So our visual designer for drag and drop orchestration is right within our dashboard under the Boot tab, where you see a list of bootable machines, and you can drag them over to the design surface and you can rearrange them with an easy drag and drop. Add boot times, wait times in between boots. You can rearrange them, create that delay between boots, create boot groups to run together or separately. So no matter what DR solution you choose, this is really important just to understand exactly how that solution plans to fail over your applications and then fail back, in addition to how much customization, how much control you have over that whole process. All right, just taking a quick look here to see if any questions have come through. All right, and so I don't see any questions coming through right now, so we are going to keep moving here. And we're going to move into the 10 ways that DRaaS can save your bacon, or really that DRaaS lets you be an IT hero. So we've seen that those traditional backup approaches simply don't work. We saw that cloud backup can take 4 to 5 hours in order to recover. And if you need something quicker than a 4 to 5 hour solution, which I would say any business does, then we're looking at DRaaS solutions, and we're looking at a 15-minute failover when it comes to Infrascale DRaaS. And so when we have here on the screen, learn how to eradicate downtime and data loss, it's simply our mission here at Infrascale. It's to eradicate downtime and data loss. We have a very simple mission, and we do that with a 15-minute failover guarantee. Now, we'll talk specifically about Infrascale later on in the presentation here, but what we do want to look at is these top 10 ways that DRaaS is going to save your bacon in any type of disaster. So that first way is to recover from ransomware. And, we're starting here with ransomware because we've all seen those headlines that this malware alters files by encrypting them. And then in order to get that data back, you need to either recover from a backup or pay the ransom. And so strains of ransomware like Locky or WannaCry or NotPetya, that's one issue, but there's another growing issue with ransomware as well. And that's the introduction of ransomware as a service, which is now making ransomware accessible to anyone. So the barrier to entry has really lowered for ransomware. Anyone can really get their hands on this type of cyber crime. So, you want to understand how ransomware gets into your organization and how you can protect from this threat, because right now we're all at risk for it. So in order to recover quickly from ransomware, we know that it takes many, many hours overall to recover from an attack if you don't have a DRaaS solution in place. But the downtime associated with that ransomware is really threatening the success of any business. So with a DRaaS solution in place, you can restore those operations in minutes without having to pay that ransom. And again, that anomaly detection technology that I brought up just a little earlier in that presentation, that's going to come into play when ransomware is a factor as well. So you're then able to detect it before the ransom's even posted. Okay, second is with those natural disasters, the hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods. And we've seen more and more of these lately as well. The idea, of course, is to be prepared when disaster strikes. And part of that planning is to have a proper DR solution in place. So you want to be able to spin up a full running environment in the cloud to allow your end users to stay productive until that disaster passes. Number 3 is a good one, end user error. And this is because we're all human and humans make mistakes. So as much as we all try to be really responsible technology users, we know that we often get tricked into clicking on those malicious email attachments, or maybe we accidentally delete critical files or folders. So DRaaS is a solution that can essentially reverse our human mistakes, and it can bring back a clean working production environment. So you don't have to lose your job over an error, because now you can simply recover from it. And then that's going to bring us to number 4. So number 4 deals with those micro disasters. Now we took a look at the macro disasters with hurricanes, tornadoes, natural disasters, floods. But those micro disasters are far more common. They're more of the daily disasters, right? So the spilled coffee, power surges, brownouts. When we already look at a situation of these, smaller everyday disasters, we know that they can happen far more frequently, right? So hardware failure, for just as one example, it's one of the very top causes of downtime. And that's because the nature of hardware itself is that it will eventually fail. It's not a matter of if, it's when. So in order to be prepared for those daily threats to downtime, a disaster recovery as a service solution will allow business to quickly and easily keep things running while the root problem is fixed up. Okay, so we may have just touched on hardware failure, but what about hardware upgrades? So number 5 is going to show us that DRaaS isn't limited to disasters alone, but planned outages and system upgrades require a certain amount of time for installation and proper configuration. And so with those planned outages, IT is then able to stay calm, collected, know that that you're not risking downtime for the business. So that way, if unexpected delays come up or if other problems arise during those planned outages, then it's really not a big deal. And you can fail back whenever the environment is actually ready. And then on to number 6. Number 6 is using your DRaaS environment as a sandbox for production testing. So it already contains replicas of your systems. It has built-in networking connectivity, and you have the ability to pre-configure the subnet, gateway, DNS servers, DHCP range, and outbound internet. So you can spin up a virtual environment for testing, and then within just minutes, your sandbox is ready. And this is great because maintaining that separate test environment can be really expensive. So you save a lot of money on it this way, and it's ready within just a couple minutes. All right, number 7 is lift and shift. So organizations that move to the cloud want to capitalize on the benefits of the cloud, right? The scalability, the agility, and cost efficiency. But those cloud migrations can take a lot of work. They're pretty laborious, and a lot of in-house applications require redesign before a move to the cloud. So while the goals are ultimately the same, we know there are multiple ways to prepare apps for cloud migration. It could be re-architecture, or it could just be the lift and shift approach. So if we look at re-architecting apps, that can be really costly, very time-consuming. So a lot of organizations prefer, in that case, the lift and shift approach. And that's going to allow you to take in-house apps and replicate them in the cloud without modifying their design. So with traditional lift and shift, it's going to move one system at a time to the cloud, and that kind of poses some problems. So instead, copy everything to the cloud with DRaaS, and then move systems to the cloud without redesign. That's the lift and shift, right? So you've then ultimately succeeded in that cloud migration while you have everything protected in the meantime. Okay, just a couple left here, almost through our top 10. We're at number 8, passing compliance mandates. And this may come into play with quite a few of you on the line here. It really does depend on the industry, but when it comes to compliance and data privacy and security, we do take security very seriously. So we have data encrypted at a 256-bit AES locally. It's sent over an SSL, and then it's encrypted again at 256-bit AES at rest. So all of our data centers also comply with HIPAA, FINRA, SOX, CGIS, SSA 16, and many other regulations. So if you are subject to any regulatory frameworks, you do want to make sure the vendor you choose has that compliance factor built in, and that's something that DRaaS can definitely help with. So with this in place and the ability to run unlimited test events, you're going to pass those compliance mandates with flying colors. Number 9, stolen laptops. So we started off, the very second slide in this presentation, we were looking at data loss by the numbers, right? And 15% of laptops had were stolen or had hard drive issues. And so, here we're coming full circle back to those stolen laptops, or maybe a smartphone that's forgotten in a taxi, or any endpoint that's just accidentally broken. Proper solutions allow for endpoint protection as well. So you want to be able to back up and recover smartphones, tablets, laptops, anything from iOS to Android, not to mention MDM functionality, so mobile device management like geolocate, geofencing, remote wipe. So if you have a stolen laptop, you want to be able to recover your data to a new laptop just quickly and easily. And in another scenario, just for another example, maybe there is a disgruntled employee that leaves the company with some sensitive information on a device. So as the administrator, you want to be able to remotely wipe that data to ensure that it doesn't land in the wrong hands. And that brings us to number 10, peace of mind. And that's because whether ransomware, natural disaster, a lost laptop, or hardware failure, you simply want the peace of mind knowing that you're prepared. Because we know unexpected interruptions and disruptions can happen at any moment, and it's simply not worth the headache, and it's not worth the business risk to be caught unprepared. So that's what brings us to this final item on our list, peace of mind, just being able to sleep well at night. And I think that we can all agree this one is a no-brainer. Okay. With that, I have one more quick poll for you guys. So you've heard from me, and now I want to hear a little bit from you. So asking, how confident are you of your DR abilities? A, we can fail over from any disaster within 15 minutes. B, we're prepared for disaster, but unsure the failover time. C, we could recover a single application if needed. And then D is, I'm not sure, unknown DR ability. We have about 50% of you have voted so far, so I'll give everyone a moment to participate here. And it looks like 75% of you have voted so far. And here, it looks like the high majority are answering B or D. We're prepared for disaster, but unsure of failover time. Or D, I'm not sure, unknown DR ability. Yep, so again, thank you for participating there. So we are split between B and D. We're prepared for disaster, but unsure of failover time, or I'm not sure, unknown DR ability. So thanks for participating. Let me go ahead and close this poll down and talk a little bit next about the Infrascale DRaaS solution. So we've already looked at how DRaaS works overall. We've sort of defined DRaaS and taken a look at how on-demand failover works in general. Now, we also want to specifically address some of the key benefits with the Infrascale DRaaS solution, and especially knowing that now we've looked at the top 10 ways that DRaaS can save your bacon. So we're really clear on all the different use cases that DRaaS addresses. And of course, that's not all of the use cases. It's simply a good starting point. So the Infrascale solution, I've mentioned a few of the details here and there as we've gone along, but I did mention very briefly that we offered a 15-minute failover guarantee. Now that is from any disaster and at a fraction of the cost of other solutions. And nobody in the industry currently offers any type of failover guarantee, let alone a 15-minute guarantee. So we're going to take a look at how we do that. Now, what's also interesting to our specific approach is I did share with you the anomaly detection technology as well as the built-in orchestration functionality. And these are aspects of a solution that are not automatically incorporated to DR. So these are really important questions that you want to be asking your solution provider to know exactly how that solution works. So, okay, let's take a look at the next slide here. Now, our approach is getting a lot of attention, so you don't need to take my word for it at all. But leading analyst firm Gartner has recognized Infrascale as the 2017 leader in DRaaS. And this is the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So you can see the others in this area, IBM, SunGard, Island, you're going to be spending quite a significantly larger amount of money on a solution with these providers. So that's exactly where I'm saying we're able to offer this 15-minute guarantee and at a fraction of the cost of others. So we're also gaining a lot of momentum. If you look at the left side of your screen here, you can see that in 2016, we were a Gartner visionary in the Disaster Recovery as a Service Magic Quadrant. And in 2015, we were a cool vendor in business continuity and disaster recovery. So again, our solution is getting a lot of attention and we're gaining momentum. So you don't have to take my word for it, but you can simply know that everything I'm going to share with you about the Infrascale solution has been verified and vetted by the experts at Gartner. Okay, so overall, Infrascale offers two services. We have cloud backup and we have disaster recovery. Now, the cloud backup solution, if you take a look at the left, it's a direct-to-cloud solution. So it's oriented more around data and bare metal image backup, and I should say file and folder data, and also endpoints. So if you take a look at the right, Infrascale Disaster Recovery, this is our DRaaS solution. So it's the hybrid cloud solution that includes that on-prem component like we saw earlier. So of course you can back up your data, but it goes a step further in being able to fail over entire environments. It captures full system images, and then you can boot and run those images on the local appliance or in the cloud, depending on what you need. As far as the specifics of our solution, this matrix shows everything that we do and what we can support. So the columns are different devices that we protect, and then the rows are the use cases. So we back up and recover iPhones, Androids, desktops, laptops across Windows and Mac. And then DR as a service or push button failover comes in to support physical servers on Windows, Unix, and Linux, and then virtual servers on VMware, Hyper-V, and KVM. So that is the broadest support footprint that you'll find in the industry. And as far as recovery targets, take a look at the bottom portion of your screen here, and you'll see that we can support any cloud or a prepackaged appliance as well. And so what I mean by any cloud is that you can use one of Infrascale's 15 global data centers, or you can use your own private cloud, or you can also use any third-party cloud. So our software is able to run with Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Windows Azure, and IBM Bluemix. Now, in terms of scale, this map here shows every business that we protect. So we're currently protecting over 170, we're currently protecting businesses in over 170 countries. And we're protecting over 1 million devices and counting, so that number's constantly increasing. And our 15 geographically dispersed data centers are protecting over 100 petabytes of data across that global grid. So this map is a really great visual to see that. Now, with all that in mind, this recovery time histogram, or cloud boot histogram as we call it, is going to show you the actual recovery times for all protected systems on Infrascale Disaster Recovery. So I'm just going to quickly go through how to read this so that we're all understanding what we're taking a look at here. Now, this cloud boot histogram is at all of the live recovery times, and it is published on our website. So you're able to view it at any time, and we do share it with the public. So for each date on the x-axis, there's a green and a red bubble. Now, the green bubble represents systems that are successfully recovered, and if there's a red bubble, then it was not recovered successfully. If there's no bubble on that day, it means that there were no systems recovered on that day. Now, taking a look at the y-axis, we see the average number of minutes. And if you're able to see it, this histogram spans from 0 to 5 minutes. So well below our 15-minute guarantee, right? And if you mouse over the bubble on our website, you're able to see the exact number of recovered systems, and it will show you the overall average recovery time as well. And again, this is published live on our site. It's available at any time for you to view on our website. We do share this information. We keep it public. So when it comes to that 15-minute failover guarantee, you can definitely see that we are well below that 15-minute mark. And I'm going to now jump over to the software. Wanted to pull that up, see if there are any questions that are coming through at the moment, because I wanted to run one more quick poll for you guys. So, last poll of the day. Here we go. Okay, got that up. So last poll of the day, simply asking, would you like to learn more about A, Infrascale Disaster Recovery, B, Infrascale Cloud Backup, C, both Infrascale Disaster Recovery and Cloud Backup, or D, not interested in either solution right now, just here learning? All right, so I'll let everyone go ahead and participate in that poll if they'd like. Great, and while we're participating in this poll, I'll go ahead and jump into the Q&A. So we'll see if there are some questions that have come through. And if you would like a free trial, please use the question tool to type in free trial, and I'll get you set up with that. If you'd like a demo with one of our sales engineers, then go ahead and type in demo, and I'll get you scheduled for that. Now, it looks like we don't have any questions coming through here at the moment. So I'd like to go ahead and thank you for joining us on this presentation. And I'd love to hear from you more in the future. So if there are any further questions or information that I can provide to you, please do reach out. And thank you again for your time today. It's very much appreciated and look forward to working with you in the future. Have a great day.